Hello. The two most recent episodes on Football for Kids, on the EFL Preview and the Premier League Preview, are long ones. They also took me a very, very long time to make. In fact, they took me about 30 to 35 hours to research, write, edit and publish the two episodes. I make Football for Kids because I love football. And I make it because I want to give you all the stats, facts and information that I possibly can. I want you to listen to it and enjoy it, and most importantly, be inspired by it. But if there's anybody out there who isn't supporting the podcast on Patreon, please can I ask you to consider it. It helps me to keep the podcast going and flowing. To the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Rees. Football is back, and thank goodness for that, because I don't know about you, but I have missed it a lot. Even though we've had the Euros, it isn't quite the same. So in the next two episodes, we'll be doing a big league football preview and a humongous Premier League preview. There'll be no shout-outs or messages on this one, as we have got a lot to get our teeth into. However, please, one request from me, make sure you've hit that follow or that subscribe button. And if you're listening on Yoto, then please add the podcast to your library. So then, let's kick things off in the English Football League. That's League 2, League 1 and the Championship. Let's start from the bottom, shall we? And we can make our way up. So, the bottom of League 2, and those that exited the English Football League, were Colchester, Sutton and Forest Green Rovers last season. Forest Green Rovers have had a terrible couple of seasons. They've gone from League 1 to League 2 to now being in the National League. I watched Pompey play Forest Green at Fratton Park a couple of seasons ago, and their fans were super passionate, and I'm sure with their support they'll be back in the EFL before they know it. Those at the top who guaranteed themselves promotion to League 1 next season were Stockport and Wrexham. The playoff final for the third team to be promoted was between Crewe Alexandra and Crawley Town. I was lucky enough to go to the match at Wembley Stadium thanks to the brilliant people at the Kellogg's football camps. Crawley won that playoff final and got themselves to League 1. New additions to the EFL and League 2 this season are Bromley, who for the very first time in the history of the club will play in the English Football League. And Bromley have a player for you to keep your eye on, a man called Michael Cheek, who, I've got to tell you, was sensational for Bromley last season. The other team making their way into the EFL this year are Chesterfield. They won the National League last year. Their manager is a manager called Paul Cook, who is one big character. And he's also been the manager of Portsmouth, Wigan and Ipswich in the past. It'll be interesting to see how Chesterfield get on this season. League 2 is a seriously tough league, and the competition is high. All the teams give it 110% in every game, because even in League 2, you're only 3 seasons from potentially playing in the Premier League. The stage, the money and everything in the Premier League is quite frankly enormous. I think in League 2 this year, Gillingham will be promoted, and they're going to have a good one. I also think that newly promoted Bromley will do a lot better than people are expecting them to. A few players to keep your eye on in League 2 this season is Michael Cheek, who I've already mentioned, he plays for Bromley. MK Dons have a Welsh footballer, a forward called Ellis Harrison, who's an extremely good player and the sort of player who scores goals for the club when they need them ever so much. And the last one to keep an eye on this season is a Notts County player called Matty Palmer. The Notts County man who may not score goals galore, but he's the sort of player that changes the game with his vision and his unbelievable ability to play the right ball at the right time, almost every time. My predictions for League 2 this season are Gillingham, MK Dons and Notts County all to be promoted. Who do you think will be the three that get promoted this season? You can respond via the Spotify Q&A section or ask an adult to send an email to footballforkidspodcast@gmail.com. Right, that's League 2 done and dusted. Keep an eye on that table, the scores and the fixtures, because that is always an interesting league full of upsets, big moments and mind-boggling stories. Let's move on to League 1. Last season, the league was won by the mighty Portsmouth as John Mousinho's blue and white army finished 5 points clear at the top and booked themselves a ticket to the Championship for the first time in many years. Derby County had a quality season as well. They finished second and secured their promotion. And the third team who got promoted, thanks to the playoff final, was Oxford as they beat Bolton 2-0 at Wembley Stadium. This year, maybe more than any other year, League 1 is a league where things will be ultra competitive, as there are many very, very solid teams in the league, and there will be plenty of tough games. Almost all the teams in League 1 have got something to prove and something to play for, and some big support as well. Birmingham, they were relegated from an extremely competitive and tight championship last year, and they are a big club with a big fan base, and they have owners who are willing to spend money to get them out of League 1. So they are going to be a seriously tough side to get results against this season, as they will have a big following and some big noise in their games both home and away. Birmingham had a chaotic season last year, and they also had 6 different managers in one season. That is not a good look, but they'll be looking to get settled down and back to winning ways. Another one to look out for in League 1 this year is the recently relegated Championship side Huddersfield. They have some really talented players, and their manager, Michael Duff, is one of the most solid managers in league football. If anyone can get them promoted back to the Championship, it's going to be him. So Huddersfield are a team to keep a close eye on this season. The last EFL League 1 team to keep an eye on this season are Wrexham. Their owners and the momentum which they have built in the 2 previous seasons has been magnificent. They are on a real roll, and the club are investing everything, which could result in yet another very positive season for the team. A few key players to keep an eye on in League 1 this season is of course the movie star and the Wrexham forward Paul Mullin. The Welshman, who was a part of the Deadpool and Wolverine film, is a Wrexham legend, and to top it off, he's a goal-scoring machine. And I'm sure he'll be sticking some balls into the back of a net in League 1 this season. The next player to keep an eye on is Bolton Wanderers forward Aaron Collins, who since joining Bolton from Bristol Rovers has become a star player for the club, especially towards the end of last season, where he was scoring constantly. And the last League 1 player I need to tell you about is Peterborough's midfielder Archie Collins. The former Exeter player is one of the most versatile players in League 1. He can play in almost any position from midfield to up front. He's got an amazing footballing IQ and knows exactly what ball to play and when to play it. My promotion predictions for League 1 this season are Birmingham. I think they'll win the league. Huddersfield Town, I think they'll be re-promoted. And Bristol Rovers, they're the dark horses of the league. I think they'll have a decent season, which may well end up with promotion. Okay, that's League 1 and League 2 done. Lastly on this episode, let's have a look at one of the most exciting and competitive leagues out there. And that, of course, is the Championship. So, the 3 teams who came down from the Premier League last season to the Championship were Sheffield United, who had one of the worst Premier League campaigns ever. They only won 3 games all season, and I think it's fair to say by the end of it, Sheffield United's fans probably couldn't wait for it to be over. Burnley went down after such a successful season the season before. They too had an awful time in the Premier League, and the last team who were relegated, who were probably a bit unlucky with some of the results which got them relegated, were Luton Town. There are some massive teams with massive followings in this year's Championship. Here's a reminder of just some of the big clubs who will be battling it out for a spot in the Premier League next season. Leeds United, massive fan base. Portsmouth, massive fan base. Sunderland, massive fan base. Sheffield United, QPR, Stoke, Coventry, Burnley, and that is just naming a few. There are some monster clubs in the Championship, and they will all have a point to prove, because a successful season will secure them their ticket back to the Premier League. Other things of note in the Championship are Wayne Rooney. He has a new job in the Championship as he's become the manager of Plymouth Argyle. Leeds United narrowly missed out on promotion last season and are looking an exceptionally good side, and they have got to be the favourites to win the Championship this year. And then there's my club, Portsmouth. Could Pompey do a double promotion season and be back in the Premier League next year? We'll just have to wait and find out. Big names, big teams, and I'm sure there will be plenty of big moments in the Championship. My predictions for this year's Championship are that Leeds will win the league, I think Norwich will go up, and I think the dark horses of the Championship this year, who will have a very good season, in my opinion, and will probably end up being promoted, are Coventry. We'll see how right I am when we get to May next year. Regardless of the results and what the tables look like at the end of the seasons, hundreds of games of football will be played between now and May. Managers will be sacked and managers will be employed. Players will be brought and players will be sold. Worldy goals will be scored, and there will be moments which we will remember forever. It's great to have the EFL back, and it's great to have football back in general. So remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly or pitch side, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.